Hey everyone, it's JC Maslick, and I am here to bring you one of the first episodes from the STEM membership. Today we're going to be talking about all sorts of ways that we can unlock creativity in our classrooms, not only in our students, but also in ourselves. So we're going to jump right into it here. Unlocking creativity is all about the way that we present new ideas to our students in the classroom. And there are a lot of great ways that we can do that. It really means that we're taking advantage of opening up this world of imagination, and we can do that right alongside our students. So many of you have probably come to the membership through the STEM Teacher Summit, so please feel free to shout out that through a hashtag if you're sharing information on social media. And feel free to reach out to me as well, whether it's through Twitter or Instagram, or email me, jcmaslick@gmail.com, if there's anything that I can do to support your creative journey. My personal creative journey really in education started as a building principal, as classrooms were engaging in really great hands-on activities, whether that be through art or science or literature. There are just so many opportunities to make that happen. And so when we think about the creative things that we present to our students, whether it's in the materials, in the content that we share, in the activities that we design, we see students collaborating in ways with both simple materials and also through technology. And so as we consider all of those pathways, we have to make sure that those opportunities are available to our students within the classroom. And that was really one of the main focus of my first book, which was called STEAM Makers. And it was all about the intersection between STEAM and maker education in schools. And when you think about STEAM, right, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and those core subject areas and how they're integrated together. Well, all of that really happens through the maker part of that. So you can take all of the knowledge that you have in those subject areas and apply it in a way that maybe is happening in a maker space or in a library or in a classroom. So this intersection between STEAM and making really was the start of my journey into unlocking creativity for students. And I do have a book. Hopefully many of you in the membership received a signed copy of Unlock Creativity. And I hope that you're enjoying it and that you're finding a lot of really simple ways, simple habits that you can create for students and for yourself to really build creativity into your practice. Why is that really important to me? I have two sons. They are ages 6 and 8, and we really make sure that we are doing creative things at home. So in my role as a mom, I make sure that creativity is a part of what I do. In my role as a teacher educator, as a leader, creativity is a strand in the work that I do. I do consider myself a maker. I like doing creative things. I like being hands-on, both as a learner and as a leader. I am a writer, so that is one of my personal creative outlets. And I'm also a speaker. And so I think that's one way that I am able to share my creativity with others as well. So I'd ask you to think about all the things that you are. You know, maybe you're a parent, you're an aunt or an uncle, maybe you're a classroom teacher or a coach. What ways, what pathways can you open up through the work that you do to really unlock creativity for the people around you? And that'll sort of be your challenge as you think through our presentation today. What are the conditions that help you to be creative? I'd like you to take a minute to just kind of reflect on that. If I sent you off on a creative task right now, what would be the environment that you were looking for? Would you choose a quiet space? Would it be an outside space? Would you grab your headphones and put on some music? Thinking about the conditions, the environment, is really important when we think about how we set up our students to be creative in the classroom. So do we have a classroom that is set up in a way that welcomes creativity and collaboration? Is our classroom set up in a way where things are accessible to students who want to create? Now I know we're in a different world now, post-COVID, and thinking about the way our classrooms are set up is probably going to be very different in the future. And so we may not have as much flexibility in the way that we create our environments, but we have to make sure that we're thinking about the conditions that help our students to be creative. Have we asked them? Have we asked them in what ways do they feel the most creative, or what tasks allow them to have that creative outlet? Having those simple conversations is something that can help you as a teacher plan lessons that will unlock that for your students. And if you are a part of the membership, you now have access to all sorts of downloads. One of them actually is a creativity profile that will allow you to kind of get at some of that information with your students. I love this visual and I love the definition. Courageously using your imagination to positively influence others. That really is at the heart of creativity. And whether it's through art or writing or performance or building and architecture, creativity allows you to share what you've imagined with others. And hopefully that does have a positive impact, not only on your students, but as well as those around you. And so I want you to think about creativity for every learner, every teacher, every leader, every educator in your building, and everyone in your community. Because creativity really impacts at all of those levels. It impacts at the student level when we allow kids to kind of fulfill their curious energies and create things. It helps when we at the educator level have the power and the freedom to be creative and to sort of unleash that in our role as an educator. But it also has an impact on our community. Our communities have creative individuals who come together to support learning in all sorts of formal and informal ways. And so think about it at those three levels. Where can you impact creativity on the learner, on yourself, and in your community? I know that in my school community, we do that in a lot of different ways, and it happens a lot in the environments that we create. This is one of my favorite pictures. We have a makerspace in one of our elementary schools, and we had a green screen wall painted. Our whole idea was that that would be a great backdrop, so if any students were creating videos, they could just stand with their iPads, and then they could change the background using a green screen app. Well, these two guys one day figured out that the wall was magnetic. This one frame of wall was magnetic. And so they took all of these magnet pieces to make a marble run on the wall. They just happened upon it. So, student discovery. And then they started thinking, what materials could I use here? How can we use what we have in this space already to create something cool? And so this was sort of the beginning phases of their masterpiece. We also unlock creativity in the opportunities that we design for our students. Here we have a young man who is connecting with some of his peers over sewing, right? Not something that you would traditionally think is happening in the classroom, but we had a really skilled teacher, so tapping into the creative skills of our teachers, and she showed the students some sort of basic skills, and it was something that the kids really liked. They liked that sort of quiet time where they would kind of sit in a circle and just kind of chit chat while they were sewing on their projects. So don't hesitate to think about maybe different materials that aren't always used in your classroom. And I think sewing is a perfect example. These particular boys went on and took this a lot further as they started learning about LED wearables and how they could create shirts that were glowing with small battery packs and LED lights. So they really took a small, simple idea and transformed it into something that was a little more meaningful to them. Creativity can happen in small things with needles and thread, but it can also happen with large things. Here is an example from right in Pittsburgh is the Carnegie Science Center, and we're blessed to have them very close to our school community. And they were able to bring in some big time tools into our space to share with our students. So, things like laser cutters and 3D printers and things that maybe schools don't have the budget to purchase. And let me tell you, that's okay. Creativity doesn't have to happen with big, expensive materials. It can happen with really small things as well. But I did just want to share an example. You can kind of see the student interest just kind of staring in and figuring out, how is this machine working? So opportunities with high tech and low tech can definitely unlock creativity in our students. It can happen with common things, right? So building blocks, like Legos that we probably have either in our homes, in our classrooms. If not, I'm sure your students have them. It's a great tool to get students thinking about design and planning and collaborating together. It also means simple things. Again, paper and pencil. A little second grade friend of mine started doing this drawing after we read a story together. And she took the drawing and she started using some everyday materials. We keep a ton of Play-Doh and pipe cleaners in all of our maker spaces. I think you will hear me talk about these a lot. They're probably some of my favorite materials, and here's why. I got these online through Amazon. They were a part of a Halloween packet. I think there were like 80 in a container, and they weren't that expensive. Pipe cleaners, dollar store, right? So investing in small, simple materials that kids will use over and over again. Things like popsicle sticks, craft sticks. Anyway, my friend here, my young friend, decided to take her drawing and create a better model. So she's using Play-Doh, and I love her rendition because of the detail that she includes, right? You can see the texture. You can see that she's thought about what the wings look like of this bird. And again, the beauty of this is it all started from a picture book that I shared with her classroom. And she was able to kind of extend her learning from that particular book and create something. And so we love to see examples of that in our classrooms. Here's another great example from one of our art classes, some beautiful flowers just made out of cardboard and paper. So again, our efforts in creativity don't have to have a high budget to them. I'm sure that in our classrooms we have construction paper, some cardboard, and those are things that we can also think about. If remote learning is a possibility in the future, if it's something that we are faced with in the fall, paper is something that we can certainly send home to our students so they can still engage in their creative endeavors, even if they're not in your classroom. Here's some great examples of some creativity using some recycled books. So books that were going to be pitched because they sort of had been at their end of life. Our librarian had a bunch of them and said, does anybody have any use for these? And I'm sure you've seen great examples of this on Pinterest and other sites. So we had students creating these large scale flowers that now cover some of our classroom doors and our hallways. And it's really allowed our students to take an opportunity to beautify some of our school spaces as well. And again, just from some glue and recycled paper. I want you to think too about another piece of our creativity. It doesn't always have to be something that is artistic or that we do with our hands. It can also be something that we do with our bodies and our voices. And here is just a quick image from our opening day of school last fall, where we had this small group of students come and sing the national anthem for all of our teachers on opening day. And they did it all a cappella. And so thinking about the way that you lift up your students in ways that allow them to clearly be a shining star, right? They're on the stage and they're sharing their artistic expertise with others. And it shared as a model for other students that creativity can look a lot of different ways. And so I think the reality that we face, and part of the reason why I wrote the book, Unlock Creativity, is exactly this. How many times have you heard somebody say, I'm just not creative? I can't draw. I don't know how to do that. I'm not interested in that. We have students who feel that way in our classrooms. Maybe some of us feel that way. And we need to find, again, I say the pathway. We need to find that path that allows all of us to find the thing that we're creative about, to find our passion, to find that one outlet that allows us to sort of express our imagination. And so for some students, it's going to be hard to get at this. It's going to be hard to get past the I'm not creative and find the thing that really speaks to them. But so one of the things that I encourage you to do is look at yourself as a model for that. If you say, oh, I can't draw, well, then students are going to think, Oh, well, I probably can't draw either. Oh, I have a horrible singing voice. Well, then your students are going to take on that. So think positively about the ways that you create and share that with your students so that they can see you as a creative role model in the classroom. And so in my book, I talk about 7 keys to unlocking creativity. And we're going to go through each one of those, and I'll share some examples. The first one is developing creative habits. And there are some things that we can do both personally and in the classroom to develop some creative habits. The second key is noticing the small things. There are lots of ways that we can open the curiosity of our students to get them discovering and exploring, whether it's materials or environment. Ways to notice really small things allow students to think creatively about how things are built and how things grow and how things are put together. And so it provides some nice opportunities there, which kind of takes it right into the third key, which is making time for playful exploration. And we'll talk a little bit about why play is an important part of unlocking creativity. The next key is for you. It is your ability to champion creativity for others, for students, for other educators, for leaders, for schools, communities. We really need to make sure that we are taking a hold of creativity and enhancing that in the ways that we really do other subject areas as well. And so we'll give some examples about that. The fifth key is about you building your creative crew. And really, creativity can happen in isolation. It might be something that you like to do as an individual, but when you surround yourself with other creatives, it does help you to get new ideas. It helps you to rethink and reflect. And so I'll give you some examples about how you might be able to do that. We have to celebrate our creative successes, celebrating them in the same way that we would celebrate academics and athletics and all those other wonderful things happening in our schools. We need to make sure that we are celebrating creative successes also. And then the last key is believing, right? So breaking down that whole notion of I am not creative and turning it around to the belief that you have creative abilities, the belief that students have creative abilities, and that we can unlock those in the classrooms. One way that we have to do that is by building stamina. So here we see a runner. I'm not sure if we have any runners in the group. I've just started doing some running maybe in the last year or so, and it requires that you build some stamina, right? You can't just go out one day and decide you're going to run a marathon. You have to start small. You have to start practicing, right? You need to build courage to do that marathon. And you have to practice. And creativity is the very same way. You have to make sure that you are starting small in your creative tasks. You need to think about the ways that you might practice each day and offer that opportunity to your students. When they're practicing, practice right alongside them. Just as if you had a running partner, right? You would want to kind of cheer them on along the way. And so building those creative habits is a way that we would build creative stamina in our students. And so one of the things that I always like to share are really quick and simple ways to do that, ways to unlock that creativity by building stamina in the classroom. And one of them, excuse me, is the 30 circle challenge. The 30 circle challenge is just that. Here we see 30 circles, blank circles, right? Excuse me. Usually when I present this either to students or to adults, I give them a time limit, generally 2 to 3 minutes, and I give them very simple and purposely vague directions. Here are 30 circles. Please fill them, put something different in each circle, and your time starts now. Right? So one of the things that you all will have access to within the membership is a template for the 30 circle challenge. And it doesn't have to be 30 circles. It can be 12 or 16 or any number that you like, maybe depending on the level of student that you're working with. And the great thing is I love to see what people come up with. So if I have these circles, a lot of folks will think about things that are circular. So they do some emojis or smiley faces. They might fill up their circles with numbers or letters or text. They might think of things, a baseball, an apple, things that are sort of circular. And then there are some super creative people who start thinking about the unusual, maybe, ways that they can connect the circles to create something else. So kind of a simplified drawing there, connecting those two circles as wheels to create a bicycle. And the great part is you never know what kids are going to come up with. So try the 30 circle challenge. Try it with your colleagues. Try it with one of your classrooms. It might be a great back to school activity. But I also, in the membership, you'll also get a list of a bunch of other ways that you can use this challenge in core academic content. So make sure you grab that download and see some of the other ideas, and maybe it will help you to think of some new ways that this template could be used with students as well. So we take it back to that physical, right? We're thinking like a marathon runner and we're building our stamina. And part of that is we have to strengthen our muscles. We have to build our physical agility. And it's in things like, we have to practice how we balance. We have to practice lifting weights. We're going to jump and run and get faster and build that cardio, get our heart rate up, right? Those are all things that we also have to do with our creativity. We have to build endurance by activating different skills, different skill sets in our students. And that might be creative thinking activities. It might be design. It might be drawing or making or building or writing. All of these ideas allow us to flex our creative muscles. And so when you think about the things that you're offering to students, make sure that they're varied. Make sure that the ways that students can express themselves can be in a number of different ways, not just necessarily the creative arts, but is it through writing, through digital components, through performance? Think about all those different pathways and make sure that those are available to your students, whether that's in the way that you assess, whether that's built in as a part of your instruction. You need to think about how you sort of flex your creative muscles. One way that you also make sure that that happens is in sharing your creativity with your students. And so if I'm saying to students, we just read this story today and everyone is going to take this quiz, right? So they only have the opportunity to answer through a paper and pencil quiz. Or I could say, you can show me in a number of ways that you understood the story. It doesn't have to be through this quiz. But if I don't have ideas to share with them for how they do that, then they're probably going to be stuck. I need to be able to model and say, hey, you can build a scene using your Play-Doh. You can write a poem to tell me, the traits of that character in the story. You can build something with cardboard to let me know what the setting of the story was. I have to have a lot of things in my repertoire to be able to share that with students. Maybe I have a unique creative skill. I remember working with a teacher who had these amazing carpentry skills, and his ability to share that passion with his students allowed them to sort of build into that excitement and interest as well. So think about what you do as a creative outlet. Think about how you can activate that and share that with your students. As we transition to sort of a lighthearted note, hopefully many of you got a big smile on your face when you saw this image of Mad Libs. I remember being a child. I know they've come back around again, but I remember doing Mad Libs all the time. And if you don't know Mad Libs, it's sort of this made up story where you're just asking your partner or your group to give you adverbs, adjectives, nouns, and you're plugging them in, and then you all read the story. And of course, it always turns out to be something really wild and silly. But taking the idea of Mad Libs and putting a little design twist on it. And again, this is just a very basic. Remember, we're talking about building in small creative habits, building our stamina, trying just a few things, perhaps each week, to build creativity and agility in our classrooms. So this template just says design a blank. So I would ask my peers or my class, okay, can someone give me a noun? All right, can somebody give me a verb? And I'm writing it in. And then the last one, give me another noun, and they're writing that in. And I did a workshop with a group of teachers not too long ago, and it was design a car to carry a kitten. I might have some of those mixed up a little bit. At any rate, so the group was kind of thinking about some design features. They were using a variety of materials to build a scalable model. So this isn't just something that students are kind of writing about or drawing about. It's something that we're actually giving them the opportunity to build with. And again, and I go back to my pipe cleaners, cheap, reusable. You know, I can build something with these today and then break them apart and use them again tomorrow. So a great tool for using something like the design template. It doesn't have to be a big activity either. You can do that one Mad Lib activity and maybe you only dedicate 12 or 15 minutes for it, right? But that small dose of creativity every day can have a really big impact because you're building that agility and that creative stamina in your students. They're gonna start to realize that they are creative. When they do that the 30 circle challenge, or when they do the Mad Libs, they're gonna go, oh, I created that. That was pretty cool. I created an impact with my creativity. And so think about how all of those small things will begin to add up over time. And speaking of time, when we are doing creation, we want to collect those ideas over a period of time. And so creating a portfolio of your creative habits is a great way to kind of show what you've accomplished. You might just have a list of things that you are going to do either, again, yourself or in your classroom, or both, you with your students. Hey, these are the things that we're going to add to our creative portfolio this week. And today we're all going to draw our to-do list. So it's only going to be sketches. Hey, tomorrow when we're working, one of the creative things we're going to do together is we're going to make a paper airplane. Kids love that. Kids love those small, simple ways to do something that is playful, but also lets them kind of unleash their imagination. So again, I include things like jigsaw puzzles, taking photographs, messing with Play-Doh, doing like a mind map or a drawing map of your favorite book or your favorite song. And so those are, again, those simple ways. They don't require a lot of materials. They're likely going to be things that you already have in your classroom and that you could choose to do one of these every day. Most of them, I would say, could be in classroom activities. And if our students are working remotely, they can certainly do the majority of these creative habits at home as well. I love this by Matisse. I came across this the other day. Creativity takes courage. And it's hard putting yourself out there and saying, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to share something creative with others. It's a risk. And so make sure that you're letting students know that you understand it takes courage to put yourself out there. And again, as you model that for students, they're going to then kind of feed off of that and build that creative confidence as well. I think doodling is a great way to kind of build that build a creative habit. There's been a ton over the last couple years around sketchnoting or info doodling, whatever you might call it. I want you to consider whether it's okay in your classroom. I read this news story, and I'm sorry I didn't include the link, and I should go and find that. But this boy was, I think it was in the UK, he was reprimanded in his class for doodling on his notebook. And it became a big story in their local news. And this wall is actually in a restaurant in his local neighborhood. And the restaurant said, come in, we want you to draw all over our walls. We appreciate the creative outlet that you are trying to express. And so I include this picture just as kind of an unconventional way that creativity was lifted up in this young man. So here are the two curious and crazy children in my home. And I wanted to share, again, one of those quick creative habits that maybe you can implement in your classroom. I just call it curious questions. And it happened, we were on a public bus, my children and I, and it was kind of a long ride, and we just started asking each other silly questions. What if all the trees were blue? What if books were the new currency? What if there were no more pets? What if all roads were made with sand? We just started going back and forth with all these sort of weird what if questions. And it just opened our mind up. As you can see, I mean, the kids were getting really silly, and that was okay. It allowed us to just think really freely about things. And I can see that happening in a classroom with this sort of lighthearted questioning that would allow students to then lead into some sort of creative task after they engaged in some curious questions. Another quick activity that I like to share, I call treasure seeking. And I share a piece of what I call my creative notebook. So throughout the book, Unlock Creativity, you'll see pages that have my little notebook stories. And they're personal things from my past with my family or my children. And when my son Caden was little, we would always go on these treasure hunts. So we would walk around the neighborhood, and I would try to get him to notice the small things. So notice those, notice the way a tree is bending, notice the sounds you hear. And he would always come home with all of these different treasures. It's a great way to kind of allow, especially little ones. He was probably 3 or 4 or 5 when this was happening. Getting him to notice things through whether it's a scavenger hunt or maybe a photo hunt or just a simple nature walk where you can kind of notice the things that are around you and really appreciate the creativity in them. It's just a small way to sort of build up that creative, flexing those creative muscles, right? And getting students to think more creatively. I cherish this because I do believe that creative people have a lot of great ideas around them, while somebody else might think that that's a huge mess, right? They're just really all of our creative ideas kind of hanging around us. And so having materials, having opportunities, having the chance to create something all around us, whether that's in our homes or in our classrooms, I really value that because sometimes creativity is messy, and that's okay. And we have to be all right with that situation for our students. And so here's another page out of the Creativity Notebook, and it is literally, for me, it is about my notebook, and really giving students an opportunity to collect the things that they're feeling creative about. I do it in a notebook. I carry it with me everywhere I go. Actually, here's my black notebook. I have multiple copies, blank ones, and I use that to collect my ideas. Sometimes I just jot in things about, an idea I have for a presentation, or a story that I want to write, or someone who I want to collaborate with. So think about the ways that you encourage students to collect their creative thoughts. And then in turn, also think about, how do you designate time to do that in the school day? I know that time is a hard thing to carve out, but do you dedicate some time for students to just have some sort of quiet, hey, jot down a couple ideas in your notebook, and maybe we'll revisit those another time. Collecting those ideas is also a great resource for the time that they say, oh, I don't know what to write about, or I don't know what to make today, or I'm feeling stuck. You can always redirect them back in to that notebook or that place that they've sort of collected their ideas, and it can be a reference for them in the future. If you haven't read or heard Brene Brown speak or any of her work, highly recommend it. Super motivational, and I love the fact that she says that creativity is the way I share my soul with the world. And so I would ask you to think about the ways that we in schools have traditionally championed things like sports and academics and leadership. And instead, think about the way that we can lift up creative work for our students and what that might look like in your school. It might mean giving students opportunities to take on a job or a role like artistic designer or digital dynamo. These are some of the cards that are a part of the book, Unlock Creativity, that you'll see if you have a copy. And it's a way for students to kind of feel that their contribution is important by giving them a role, that we're lifting up that opportunity for them to lead in creative ways. We also need to think about those roles that students take on and give them an opportunity to do something creative. Here in this chart, I just have a bunch of really great digital tools. So think about your kids who maybe identify as the designers, as the writers. Maybe they're the one in your class who wants to be the producer or the collaborator or the gamer. A lot of students will feel like they fall into one of those roles. And so here are a bunch of awesome tech tools that might align for the interests of those creative students in your classroom. And again, this is also something that is embedded right in the book. So you'll have a copy of that as well, and links to all of those tools if you're not familiar with them. Another way that we can champion creativity and kind of lift that up and call attention to it is by the opportunities that we create in our schools. And if you're a classroom teacher, if you're a coach, if you're a leader, think about the ways that you can give students more opportunity. The picture that you see here is just a tremendous work of art, I believe, all done in cardboard, that one of our middle school students did in a club that she goes to called Recycled Art. And it's just something that we offered to our students, and we offer a lot of things like theater tech and yoga, digital animation, app development, things that, again, if you go back to those pathways, you know, it's not just everything that is artistic, but some of it is performance, some of it is, you know, at the writing level or the planning or the design level, but giving students a lot of different opportunities. Maybe you have the ability in your school to create a club or an elective course. And, you know, maybe it's just something that you do at lunchtime, a lunchtime club with students, but think about finding those opportunities to infuse a little more creativity in the school. It might be the way that you create spaces in your school, right? This is a library table that someone drew in Sharpie, and then when students come in, they color it in. You know, adult coloring books have been quite the fad lately. And I think here's another great example that I share in the book. This is not me, and this is not my room, but I do share a story in the room, share a story in the book about my bedroom growing up and the way that my parents allowed me to write on my walls, and that was a great creative outlet for me. Again, kind of unconventional, but check that story out in the book. One of the other keys to creativity is playful exploration. Here we have one of my favorite old school kind of toys, Lite-Brite. Again, a great way for students to just kind of mess with some creative materials. I think you can get them for less than $20. Great way to, you know, maybe a little nostalgic for us as the adults, but allow students to kind of discover with light and color is a wonderful way to embed some play in your classroom. If you don't know, Mr. Rogers was from Pittsburgh, my hometown, and he always talked about the importance of play, and that we usually think about it as a relief from all the hard work that we're doing during the day, but truly that play is a part of our learning, and it is really, truly what makes up our children's childhood. So don't hesitate to infuse some play and exploration in your classrooms as well. And again, I share my love of Play-Doh. No kickbacks from the Play-Doh company, but we use it every day in my house, I'm sure. And I love to see things like this in our classroom where students are building and designing and creating new things with this colorful and simple tool. How can you use it in your classroom? Use Play-Doh to have kids show their math understanding. Can they show you something with fractions? Can they mold their Play-Doh to draw out the equation that you've asked them to do? Can they summarize a story with their Play-Doh? Maybe they're creating an animal habitat or designing a class logo. So many opportunities that you can just give students something hands-on as opposed to handing them just a piece of paper. Give them something tangible that they can work on to show you that they understand. Those last two things, obviously a little bit on the social emotional side, but Play-Doh can also be used to ask students how they're feeling. Maybe they can mold it and show you something that kind of gives them insight into how they're feeling or something that's going on in their world. And also simply to relieve some stress. I don't mind if a student is sitting and molding with Play-Doh while we're working together, because maybe that's what they need to do with their hands to be able to focus and to engage. But know and recognize that there will be times that students will have a creative struggle, that we as adults will have a creative struggle. They'll say things like, I don't know where to start, or I started but I'm stuck already, or I don't have any good ideas, I don't know what to do next. All of those things are normal. It is okay to tell your students that they can feel that way. And really it's just our goal to make sure that we can equip them with some things to overcome some of these struggles. And again, it really is the supreme art of a great teacher to get beyond those barriers and bring out the joy and creative expression for our students. And we all have the ability to do that by building in small creative habits, by creating the conditions that allow our students to feel creative, and really by just creating alongside of them and giving them that opportunity. One of the keys to creativity that we haven't talked about yet is around how we celebrate and showcase student creativity. So thinking about our school walls more as art galleries and how we display student work. Engaging in community projects, like this one with a company that does glass work here in Pittsburgh, and creating beautiful art installations. Again, those beautifully framed pictures that make student work so important by displaying it in our schools. We're almost here at the end here, and we want to make sure that we talk about building our creative crew, right? We talked about the idea that sometimes creativity can be individualized, and we like to do some of those things on our own. But I always feel so much more creative when I know that I can pull some creative thoughts from those around me. And Twitter is probably one of my favorite social media tools, and all of these folks are just incredible artists, thinkers, creative people out there on Twitter that you definitely need to connect with. If you're not following these folks, give them a follow. You will not be disappointed in the great things that they share, the visual images, the content that they're able to share with their followers. So I would most definitely check out the work of those folks. So we talked about those 7 keys, right? We talked about ways we can develop habits, notice the small things, make time for play, be a champion of creativity for others, build your creative crew, celebrate successes, and that last one, belief, right? We have to believe in ourselves as creative individuals, and we have to make sure that that belief is felt in our students as well. And when we begin with the belief that we can do it, we really can accomplish any task, be it a creative task, an academic task, any challenge that we face starts with the belief that we can do it. And so one of the things that I want to have you walk away with today is one of the pieces of the book, Unlock Creativity, and it's called the 7-Day Creativity Challenge. And each day, there's just one very simple thing that you can do to build your creativity. And so I would challenge everybody, whenever you're engaging in this particular workshop, to take the next 7 days and do one of these things each day to see if you can start building up your creative stamina. If you do them, please tweet them out. take a picture, tweet it out, tag me so that I can see that you're doing some of these creative things. Please post it in the Facebook group as well. I would love to see some of the things that you come up with. Better yet, I would love to see this happen in classrooms in the fall. Could we not all engage in a 7-day creativity challenge just as a way to kind of jumpstart creativity for our students when we head back to school in August and September? And so with that, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to connect with everybody today. I hope that you walked away with some ideas from those 7 keys of unlocking creativity. I hope that you're enjoying the book. If you haven't gotten a copy of the book yet, please reach out to me. I will be happy to work with you on that. And if you need to contact me, again, my information is there. I appreciate being a part of the STEM membership. I hope that you enjoyed this session, and I hope that you're looking forward to so many other great sessions that will be coming up from amazing educators across the country. And so with that, I can't wait to hear how you unlock creativity, both for yourself and within your students. Have a great day.